Hey team, welcome back to Ross Spec. Unfortunately, I ran out of talent and I crashed my Mach 1 when I was performance testing it against my Dark Horse. But after a bit of an inspection, the damage isn't as bad as what I initially thought. So instead of scrapping it, we're going to save it. But there's only one worse thing than having a crashed Mustang, and that's a crashed Mustang that doesn't move. So today we're going to get it rolling. Come on, let's get into it.
The first job was to remove the front wheel. Should be an easy job, hey, but some numpty, aka me, tried to get the rubbish out that was between the tyre and the rim when I had it off last time. Now it won't take any air at all, and I can't get the jack underneath. I had to steal the scissor jack out of the ute so I could prop it up just enough to get the jack underneath. I'm sending the wheels on the damaged side to the tyre shop, just to get them to take the tyres off the rim, clean the rubbish out, and see if they'll take air again. With the wheel out of the way, I undid the front control arm and removed the old tie rod end from the hub. I gave the hole a bit of an inspection to ensure that the hole or the end of the hub wasn't damaged. To give myself more room, I decided to remove the brakes. After loosening the caliper, I undid the brake hose retaining bolt to the caliper to have more room to move. And I put the bolt back in the hole so it didn't go missing. Then I could remove the caliper, sit it on the subframe, and remove the disc. These massive discs are heavy as. There is some weight saving to be had here. With all that out of the way, I could also double check that the hub still rotated straight and wasn't damaged. Now time to remove the front control arm. Unfortunately, the way that it had bent, it wouldn't come out. It would bang up against the bottom of the strut. I had to remove the strut from the hub too. First I undid the strut bolt nuts. Then putting the nuts back on backwards, I could hit them out with a hammer and not worry about burring the ends of the bolts. I knocked the bolts out, first with the hammer, then with a punch. With the strut bolts out of the way, I could lower the hub down. Then we noticed the ABS sensor was at full stretch. I removed that too so it wouldn't get damaged, and I got it out of the way. Then could drop the rear control arm down out of the way to help get the front control arm out of the hub. With the outer of the front control arm removed, I can undo the inner control arm bolt and remove it from the car. Yeah, I've done a good job here. If you haven't already guessed it, the top one is the new one and the bottom one is the one I bent up. It's great that this was the weak link. If it hadn't, all that force would have been transferred to the subframe and I might have bent that up instead. Now it's time to feed in the new control arm and loosely put in the bolt. Drop the outer end into the hub and remove the old tie rod end. I only just cracked the nut and removed the tie rod end. I'm hoping if I keep the nut in around the right place, the wheel alignment won't be too far off when it's back together. Then I could tighten up the outer control arm nut, tighten the strut to hub bolts, and reinstall the ABS sensor. Then we could lift the control arm to be able to tighten the inner bolt at road height. With that done, I put the wheel on just to see how it aligns up. Now I was originally excited because there was no oil on the floor, but with moving it up and down, a bit has shown up on the floor. Time to see what's going on. After removing a million push clips, I could pull out the inner liner. Yeah, look at that. The transmission cooler is busted. Looks like the bumper flexed up into the bottom of it. When it bent, the hose didn't give enough flexibility and it cracked off the connection. Now I was pretty sure it did the same to the engine cooler too. I've noticed a nice little puddle form on the other side. So after removing the inner liner, I could see that it was broken in exactly the same way. I was hoping that an aluminium radio shop would be able to patch these up, so I undid the mounting bolts, unclipped the cooler lines, and removed the cooler. Then repeated for the transmission cooler. Unfortunately, I was informed that they couldn't be fixed. Well, they could, but he said you'd be 5 hours in and not have a sealed unit, so it wasn't worth the hassle. I went to order new ones from Ford, but unfortunately they only had the transmission cooler in the country. And if I had to bring in one from the US, it was going to be cheaper for me to get them both from there. You must only be able to overnight parts from Japan. Estimated delivery time is over a month. But in the meantime, I could put the new tie rod end on and tighten it up. Then reinstall the brake disc and caliper and torque this side down. Then, after a long patient wait, the coolers are finally here. Time to get them out of the box, one for the engine and one for the transmission. Looks like one of the pipe connections on the transcooler is being dropped or has a manufacturing defect. There's really tight tolerance on these pipes fitting in the hose end. Hopefully this isn't an issue. Before the cooler can go in, I had to remove the remainder of the bracket. Then I could feed the cooler in and see if the hose would slide on the end. As I expected, it didn't. Need to order a replacement. While I wait for another one, I realised that it'd be much easier to fit the coolers with the undertray removed. This is where I realised how the Mach 1 has influenced the Dark Horse design. Any Mach 1 you can add the handling package splitter to the bumper. For the Dark Horse, the original bottom of the bumper has to be removed to add the new splitter. For the Dark Horse, this means you can easily remove the undertray. Unfortunately, the Mach 1 splitter needs to be removed first to get to the front edge of the undertray bolts. Considering that the Mach 1 splitter is mostly held on with plastic rivets, this is more time and resource consuming task. My splitter and undertray are damaged from the crash. They had to come off anyway, but if the undertray needed to come off for something else, this would be a pain. I removed the plastic rivets with a combo of knocking the heads off with a chisel and drilling the old ones out. After a bit of rolling around on the floor, I finally got the splitter off. Then I could unbolt the undertray, starting from the front to the back, then giving it a bit of a tug to release the Christmas tree plug on the back and slide it out. Now I could prepare to install the second transcooler. I unbagged the hose connections. They were still clean from the first time I tried to install the cooler. Fit the retaining clips to the hoses, then feed in the transcooler and hold it in place by loosely installing the bolts. Then, as if it was made to do it, slide on the hoses. Finally install the pipe to hose plastic retaining clips and tighten everything up. Then I could repeat the process for the engine cooler. Remove the bracket, unbag the hose, clean the ends and fit the retaining clips. Feed the cooler in and connect the hoses. The original engine cooler didn't have these white pipe end caps. There must have been an update at some stage. They just clip onto the end of the hose. With the cooler in and connected, I could tighten everything up. It is now at the point where I might be able to start it up again, but before doing that I popped the bonnet and checked the oil. Opening the door I realised the battery was dead as a doornail. I hooked up the jump starter and hit the boost button. Action! I made sure to take my overalls off so I could sit in the seat, crossed my fingers and hit the starter button. I only let her run for a few seconds. She didn't sound great, but most importantly, there isn't any more oil on the floor. I guess now I can put the wheels back on and put her on the ground for the first time in months. Just like that, we have a roller again. Silly me. Off camera, after charging the battery, I cranked her over. She fired to life, ran good for a couple of seconds, and then snuffed out. Now I'm stuck with this. I'm guessing that she ran off the fuel left in the lines. I plugged in my code reader to see if there's anything stored. Nothing. Even though I knew there was fuel in it, the gauge was still reading 0. Just to double check, I put in another 5 litres and tried again. Yeah, I have some research to do. I figure the fuel is still shut off from when it went into the tyre barrier. I found 2 procedures to reset the fuel cutoff. One from the owner manual that involved cycling the ignition while doing certain brake applications and releases. The other was cycling the ignition but after leaving it on for 10 seconds. Neither worked. If you've got any tips on what to do, let me know in the comments, but at this point I'm guessing I need to plug in ForeScan and check that out. Well, not the way I would have liked to end it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see what's stopping it from starting, and remember, there's more to going fast than going fast. Catch you later.